Welcome back to the main stage, everybody. And we are here for the last presentation of today, but this is a good opportunity to remind everyone that we are back on tomorrow. So please join us for the event opening tomorrow. And even after this presentation, there's half an hour of booth time as well. But let's get on with the final presentation of today. So I would very much like to welcome Arcadis to the event. And we are joined by Sydney, Emily and Sophia. And I'm going to hand you over to Sydney to kick us off.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks everyone for joining, sticking around for the last presentation. My name's Sydney. So just a bit of a format for our presentation. We're just going to have a bit of introductions from the three of us. Then we'll talk a bit about our kind of projects that we work on. And then we'll talk about kind of the extracurricular opportunities available within Arcadis. And then there'll be some time for questions. So if we just start with an introduction from Sophia. Sorry.
Thanks, Sydney. Hi, everyone. I'm Sophia, and I'm a graduate civil engineer. So I graduated from Heriot-Watt in Edinburgh in summer of 2020 with a master's in civil engineering. And I've been a graduate engineer with Arcadis since January this year. And I've been working in the geotechnics team based in Manchester and Warrington.
Thanks. My name's Sydney. I'm a graduate project manager. I studied construction project management at Oxford Brookes University, where I studied for 2 years, and then I had a placement year with Arcadis in my third year, and then went back for my fourth year. And then following from having my placement, I was offered my graduate position that I'm in today, and I work in the manufacturing and technology sector within the company.
Nice. Hi everyone, I'm Emily. I'm a graduate sustainability consultant at Arcadis. I started last October as an intern and then went on to the grad scheme this January. And I've got a background in environmental science and then a master's in sustainability and consultancy from the University of Leeds.
So we just thought we'd talk to you a little bit about our kind of projects that we work on since joining or rejoining Arcadis as graduates.
Okay, so hi everybody again. So I'm just going to talk about why I joined Arcadis a little bit for my projects. So I'm currently on the engineering part of the graduate rotational program, which lasts 3 years at Arcadis. So my first rotation is currently in geotechnics, and then I'm due to rotate into highways early next year. So for me, this type of program is good because I enjoy lots of different aspects of civil engineering, and this way I'm able to experience a lot of different design and consulting processes in like all kinds of infrastructure projects. So yeah, and this is also very good for chartership. So I'm aiming for chartership with the ICE, where you have to prove you're capable of about, I think, 9 attributes that are not only technical, but you have to prove management, contractual, and sustainability attributes of an engineer. So this type of program is good that it gives you options to gain those experiences. So for me, when I was applying for jobs in my final year of uni, no other company was really offering something like this. So that's a little bit why I wanted to work for Arcadis. So a little bit about the projects that I've been working on since January. So one of the biggest projects that I've got to work on is Kids Grove Station Access for All scheme. So basically they were trying to increase the access that was not there before. So this was in the form of a lift shaft and a new overbridge. But the main task for the geotech team here was to stabilize historic mine shafts. So we worked very closely with the Arcadis site team and the GIS team, and together we produced a 3D mine model, which is a little bit of a snippet on the screen there. So we use this to like visualize the boreholes that we drilled every day, and we pretty much updated it like daily. So we almost had like a real-time kind of model, which kind of reflected of what had been done and kind of what we needed to do next. And yeah, it was very useful in successfully delivering the project. So after we stabilized the ground, the lift shaft and overbridge had to be installed. So this was done using a 183-ton crane that was used to lift the bridge, which I designed the crane pads for. So to do this, I examined like the ground conditions after the ground investigation and came up with the design of the crane pad. And that is essentially how the ground should be prepared and put into place before the crane goes in. So I did this by doing calcs to make sure that the crane pad didn't essentially fall through the ground when it will be in operation. And then another scheme that I've been working on is the Central Scotland Gauging Scheme, which involves, I think, about 60 intervention sites to get a certain clearance of freight along the train. So just to kind of get bigger trains in for the freight trains. So to do this, you could either do a brick deck replacement to make up the height, or you could do like a track lowering scheme. So depending on the solution, my team have to design the ground investigation to find this information. And after this, we also design the geotechnical parameters that will be used in the design process. So I've currently worked on about 10 plus sites along the whole of Scotland for this scheme. And this kind of involves like work on tunnels as well, which has been quite interesting. A lot of different kind of constraints. And then one of the last projects I'm going to talk about is a bridge infill scheme in Manchester. So this project involved like a new deck replacement over a railway bridge, but also the client wanted to do like an infill scheme on half of the span to close off the span to stop people from going in there and like kind of vandalizing the area. So they proposed to do this by filling it up with like a lightweight concrete fill. So my responsibility on the project was to run the calc checks on bearing capacity and settlement to make sure that all this extra weight and the extra weight of the new deck would not essentially cause the ground to fall through the earth. But it was good. It worked out in the end. So yeah, that was just a little bit what I've done so far at Arcadis. So I think we're on to Sydney next. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Fia. Yeah, so the first project that I was involved in as a graduate project manager was EE store refits. So this was a program of about 50 stores, or upwards of 50 stores that were having their stores renovated. So it covered the whole of the UK. So it meant that I was doing a huge amount of traveling for work. It was a relatively small project at 3.6 million. Very small, in fact, actually for our sector. Involved a huge amount of stakeholder management, so working with the client, but also kind of with the franchisees for the stores, with the staff, and with the contractors, and kind of anybody else that had a say in the project. It was closely working with the client's design team, which is interesting because you have to basically do what they want. So it can create some kind of risks associated there to manage. Since it was traveling around to different sites, it was vast majority of it was management of contractors. So that just meant kind of liaising with the contractors on site and kind of being there to make sure that everything went smoothly. We also utilised online data management within this project, using something that we call data frame within Arcadis, which is trying to kind of implement over all of our projects, which basically means that all of the information that you use is kept in one place. It just basically means that as a project manager anyway, it makes your life a lot easier. So that's pretty good. I also then went on to work with BAE, which they're developing a new workplace standard to kind of create a new kind of modern way of working a bit post-COVID. This was working with the Arcadis in-house design team. So it was nice to kind of work with them and see how they worked. With this project, we actually had to sign an NDA, so I can't really speak any more about it. But that's just kind of just one of the many projects within my sector anyway that you have to sign these NDAs, so you can be working on quite kind of exciting new projects, which is pretty cool. And then the most recent project I'm working on is a new packaging facility for DS Smith. Slightly bigger project, but still quite small at 25 million. It's not much that we know about that project yet. It's kind of still a bit in the pipeline, but we'll be providing project management services and working with the cost managers as well. So with any project, you work really closely with the cost managers to kind of make sure that you deliver that project on time and within budget. Thanks. If we go on to you, Emily.
Yep. So one of the projects that I'm currently working on is a project called HSBC Project Huxley in Swansea. So it's a project that's a refurbishment of an existing HSBC office building in Swansea. It's 2 stories and like within an industrial area. And what we've been tasked to do is work on the LEED accreditation for this for very good rating. So LEED was developed by the Green Building Council, and it's a programme to set standards for design to help a development be more sustainable, basically. So what we need to do is we go through our contacts within HSBC for the building and discuss things surrounding the design of the building, of the refurbishment, the layout, the maintenance, things like that, and try and figure out the best possible options to get certain credits. And then when they get those credits, then they get more and more points, and more points means either a good rating or a very good rating. And it's quite competitive now. So a lot of organisations and companies want a LEED rating for their buildings because it looks quite good, to be honest. And one they can be quite easy, some of the LEED credits. So there's one for bicycle storage. So you have to have bicycles at a certain amount of distance between the storage facilities and the on-site entrance, and that's literally it, just to prove that there is easy access to sustainable transport methods. So it's things like that that we need to try and discuss with the client and try and figure out what the best, easiest options are that aren't too costly, but some of them can be quite costly and can mean sort of changing a lot of the layouts of the building on the inside. But overall, LEED is really, really good, and it can help a lot of projects be much more sustainable. So that's one that we're currently working on. And then another one that I'm working on is Chelmsford Garden Village. So this is a development of around 10,000 homes, homes, schools, employment opportunities, all kind of that stuff. And the people who are designing it really want it to be innovative and sustainable. So we're coming at it from an environmental and sustainable perspective and engaging with the stakeholders and trying to figure out what exactly it is that we can do, what are the constraints, what are the short, medium and long-term considerations, and how everything ties together. So it can be quite complicated in terms of sustainability because it does flow throughout everything and it has to be considered at every single stage. So for example, we want there to be a efficient, sustainable transport network in the area, which might mean having thinner roads, one-way systems with bicycle networks and public footpaths, which would be wonderful. However, you have to consider whether EV waste bin disposal, they can drive through that section. So it's trying to figure out all these different things that play a part in sustainability for a new development and how it can actually work together. But it's really, really interesting, and it's really good to sort of engage with all those different clients and try and get the next set of homes to be really sustainable. And then another one that I've worked on is Department for Education. We didn't work on the school side of it. It was more in terms of the office buildings again. And this one was to develop a strategy for them. So it was between 2021 and 2035, setting out their commitments for net zero, giving guidance about how they can achieve net zero. So we had to do a gap analysis of this to identify what was already in place, what they were planning, what the gaps were in sustainability and energy, and anything that they could do in the future. So it was a lot of stakeholder engagement, and then afterwards we were able to put all of this together and create a framework and a document for them to follow for the next 10, 15 years to hopefully get net zero. But yeah, similar to you, there's been a lot of different projects that we've worked on that vary quite a lot, which is wonderful.
Cool. Thanks, Emily. So we thought we'd also talk to you a bit about the extracurricular opportunities that are available within Arcadis, because whilst obviously all three of us are involved in delivering projects, that's not how we spend all of our time. So we have lots of different things that you can kind of get involved in at Arcadis. I'm personally involved in a sustainability working group. So it just means that we kind of get together and kind of provide thoughts and ideas and feedback in how we could be more sustainable in kind of just in the office or even in our projects. We also are the charity board, and Arcadis Charity Board also has a initiative called a Charity Day, which means that every Arcadis employee gets a day a year to use to volunteer for a charity. So that's me in the bottom right, volunteering on my charity day at what will be a new charity shop, basically sorting out loads of clothes. So it's a really awesome way to kind of give back to the community, but also hang out with your friends and do a bit of networking as well. I know, Sophia, you've also done a charity day.
Yeah, I have done. So that's me and my team on the bottom left there. So I don't think you have to do charity days with your team. You can do it by yourself, or you can do it with organize it with friends and whatnot. But one of the PMs on my project in my team organized this charity day where we went to Montgomery Canal. So my team had been working on it, and we basically kind of built a section of the canal. It involved like 1,000 odd concrete blocks, and then putting down lots of liner and stuff. But because I've been working from home since January, and I hadn't really seen anyone, I think it was a good chance to go out and see everybody, get some fresh air. It was a good day, and it was good that Arcadis kind of give you that opportunity to use a day like that. So in terms of other activities, for chartership especially, I think in my business unit in geotechnics, they do a lot of at the moment they do a lot of CPD events, kind of lunch for learns and lunch and learns, and then they also have I think each kind of office kind of has like a graduate kind of group to kind of help you through like chartership stuff, which is quite good, and a lot of networking events too. I think Arcadis also do something called the Quest program, where I think you can kind of be like a buddy system, like to someone else like that's not in the UK kind of thing, and you can kind of do like an office swap kind of thing. And then also the shelter program, which is in association with the UN Habitat, and I think that's a kind of more like kind of charitable work, but not just limited to the UK. You can kind of do that abroad. And then Roots of Arcadis is also like another kind of group which is internal. They do a lot of talks and a lot of webinars with a lot of high level people. And then they also have they run a scheme, I think, where you can, as an individual, you can kind of apply for funding if you want to do some kind of training that maybe your business unit did. Do some kind of training that you are interested in, like away from kind of work, but you still want to kind of build up your skill set and stuff. But in my office as well, I think pre-COVID they did a lot of social events, like they had a lot of sport teams, a lot of sports teams and stuff. So I think now that we're coming out of COVID, they're gonna try to kind of promote those up again. But yeah, and then I think Emily's got a few things as well.
Yeah, so digitalization is really, really important to Arcadis, because we know that sort of times are changing and it's quite high demand, and we sort of need to change with the times, and they really understand that it's quite competitive, and they've got quite a few sort of digital training activities within the company. A few of them are online, a few of them are face-to-face, and one of them is Expedition DNA, it's called. So it includes starting off at a base camp with an online learning opportunities to understand just the baseline of what digital is and speak like the common language around it. And then once you've completed a certain amount of hours on this baseline DNA digital sort of learning platform, you can then go on to the expedition, which involves sort of really deepening your understanding on digital sort of innovation, savviness, and kind of understanding the market a bit more. And I think that's either 4.5 days in person, or it can be like 10 weeks virtually, which is really, really good because it can sort of bring everybody up to speed on digital and just like, get everybody at the same level. And there's also mental health first aiders. So every member of Arcadis has access to a mental health first aider. They're all Arcadis employees, and they're like a direct point of contact if you or someone that you're concerned about are experiencing any sort of mental health issues or emotional distress at all. And they're quite additional support in terms of being able to lead you in the right direction for anything that you need sort of surrounding that. So yeah, it's like an internal training platform that you can use to become a mental health first aider, but it's quite backed up at the moment because everybody wants to do it, which is wonderful. Really shows how much like employees care about mental health, which is great. I'm on the waiting list still, but I have done the mental health awareness training, which doesn't get you up to being a mental health first aider, but it sort of has a lot of information. I think it's a three-hour 3-session course, and it covers things such as like the warning signs of sort of mental illness and different types of mental illness, and sort of what to spot and how to sort of keep an eye out and look out for your friends really, and yourself. And Arcadis does have a lot of support in terms of mental and physical health, which is wonderful to see in a company. A lot around that.
Well, thanks, Emily. We also thought we'd talk about inclusion at Arcadis, because in addition to the kind of the programs that we just mentioned, there are these kind of 6 diversity and inclusion strands. Emily's going to talk to you a little bit about those.
So I'm part of the wider diversity and inclusion strand, which pretty much is like the overriding one of all these. So what we do is we try and embed inclusion and diversity within the company, just as an overall thing. So we typically meet once a month and just discuss anything that's come up in that month, anything that we're concerned about, anything that's been really positive and things like that. And then that kind of funnels down into these different strands. So one thing that we've been trying to do is typically at the start of most meetings, and quite big meetings usually, we have a health and safety moment, and that tends to be things around safety at the workplace, safety on site, any lessons learned from any injury and things like that, like next steps, when typically now we're trying to push it so that we don't just have it in terms of injuries and like health and safety. Is now more inclusion and diversity, so people can bring up anything they've experienced and like learnings from that, or things they're concerned about, and have like a little discussion before a meeting starts, rather than it just being health and safety. Sort of embeds it all together, and yeah, that's one thing that we've been doing quite a lot recently, which is really positive. Sydney, do you want to go through a few of the individual strands?
Yeah, of course. I was thinking we probably should have had a health and safety moment at the start of this.
Yeah, didn't think.
Yeah, so I am personally involved in the Kaleidoscope strand, which is a strand which has events and talks about LGBTQ plus issues. And that bottom right picture there is unfortunately not this year because just because of COVID and numbers. We weren't at Pride, but in the previous years we have been in the parade. So it's really cool to kind of get together as a company and kind of represent and so show support. So yeah, it's really good to be involved in these strands and kind of get educated in all the kind of different issues that we're facing. So yeah, cool. Finally, I know we're a bit pushed for time. I thought we'd just talk about kind of the support that you get within Arcadis and when you join as a graduate. So when you start, you get a line manager, and you're also appointed a buddy. So your line manager kind of you'll speak to on a weekly basis, even more frequently if you want to. And then your buddy is indispensable. I asked my buddy so many, what he calls stupid questions when I first started, and they were just really helpful. So it's just really nice to kind of have that person that you can just talk to on a bit of a personal level.
So for like in my personal business unit, we have say weekly meetings with my direct team, and then we also have monthly meetings with the wider team. I also have a lot of meetings and chats with my line manager. He doesn't necessarily work on the same projects as me, but we're quite integrated in that. We like to kind of he needs to kind of know what everyone's doing, kind of thing, and that's the purpose for those kind of different meetings set up. So for me, it's quite beneficial to know what kind of everyone's doing, especially because we don't see each other in the office as much. It's good to kind of semi get to know people like that. You just kind of hear voices and that kind of stuff. So that's good. But also, like I said before, we also have chartership guidance and prep, and we have a lot of there's a lot of support in the business for that, in terms of the ICE especially. And then we have some team office socials. I think Arcadis recently came up with the program called Pause, Reflect and Recover, where they gave everyone like a set amount of money which we could spend per head, and I think it was 2 hours of time, where the aim was to basically kind of get teams together and do something together that wasn't just doing work. My team, I think, just went out for dinner, I think, but I think other people have gone to Go Ape and done mini golf and all that kind of stuff. So I think that initiative coming out of COVID was a good one to have. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so if anybody has any questions, I know there's a few questions in the chat boxes. Hi, Ali.
Hi there. Thank you very much, all three of you. That was really great. And yeah, you're right. There's been some great questions coming through. So we've got 5 minutes or so, and I will just have a quick look down some of the Q&As that we've got. So the one that's been the most up-liked, you've been on a real variety of projects, but the question is, what's been the favourite project you've worked on? I guess elaborate on that and why. Sydney, just because you're on the left-hand side, if we start with you.
Yeah, of course. My favourite project definitely is the EE refits, just because I started in January and obviously most of the country was pretty locked down. So it meant that I was able to travel around, which was just a godsend at the time. But it was also just really nice because I got to see because it's a program of works and it's obviously multiple stores, you get to see kind of a real before and after, and you really get to see how you've kind of benefited to deliver that project. So it was really satisfying to work on.
Right, and I know these things are all relative, but I enjoyed that was a small project at 3.5 million. It goes to show the size of the other projects that you work on.
Exactly, yeah.
Emily, same question to yourself.
I think mine might be one that I've not spoken about yet, actually. It was for the Ministry of Justice. So we did feasibility of putting solar PV on prisons, and it just was a really cool, interesting project to work on. I got to get trained up in software called Helioscope, where you can basically just draw solar PV onto roofs and it'll tell you how much energy is produced in certain directions, certain angles, and things like that. And it was just really interesting and cool to have all these different images of prisons around the UK with solar panels on, and it just seemed very innovative and like forward thinking about how like sustainability can be everywhere. It was just a really interesting project to have a play around with. Yeah, it was good.
Thank you. And Sophia, what about yourself?
I think mine for me has to be my Kids Grove one, purely because we were able to produce something very digital to produce to the client. It was also a very collaborative process in terms of like with the site team and the GIS team. Like, I think it was quite an innovative way to kind of come up with to kind of design our drilling and grouting scheme. It was like literally the first project I'd been on, and it was a very challenging process in that I got given a lot of responsibility very early on. It was very kind of reactive work. So stuff would happen on site, they'd phone me and I'd be like, oh, we have to sort this out kind of thing. So it was a real like pushing the deep end. However, it was like what we got out of it, it was like, a real achievement, I think, in terms of what we achieved, the product we initially like came up with, and the collaboration factor of it as well. So that was good. Yeah.
Nice, thank you. And I presume there might be no one answer to this, but how do you get involved in these various projects? Again, it sounds like you've been involved in quite a variety across you all. So how does that process work?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Emily.
Sorry. I was just going to say, so part of my role, like internally actually, is I work on our like a resourcing planner. So when projects come in from different organizations, me and some other of my team members put it into this big Excel spreadsheet. And from that, we figure out who has the experience or the availability required to be able to work on that project. So if a project comes in, and for example, it's about solar PV, they can look at the tracker and see that I've got experience in that and I'm keen to do my work on it, and then contact me through that way. So it sort of depends on what comes in, what the time frame is and things like that. But typically, from what I found, a project comes in and then a line manager or somebody higher up just says, are you keen to have a go? And I feel like at our level, we just say yes to everything because we want to try a bit of every kind of project going. But that's how it works in my team. It might be different in others, but we sort of track the resource requirements for each one and who could be best for it.
Yeah, we have something very similar as well. We have a resource tracker and like a very extensive Excel. But like in terms of finding out stuff that maybe you want to be involved in, I think communication with your line manager is quite important. Like if you want to do something and you want to be on a certain project, to do specific designs or whatever, I think you have to be quite proactive in saying, yes, I would like to do this, and then they kind of know, okay, we need to find her that kind of opportunity. Like I think that came up in I think in our reviews and stuff like that, because you have to make goals and stuff at the start of the year. So I think it's just being vocal about what you want, and just being clear to the team, I think is always a good way to go about it.
And I think just on that, also knowing what you don't like I think
Yeah.
at a grad level, it's quite, like I was saying, it's quite easy to be like, yes, 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 try everything. But you
Yeah.
might work on a project, realize halfway through it's just not for you, you're not enjoying it, and that's fine. Like at the level that we're at, it's okay to be like, this isn't for me. I'm not developing as much as I can from this. I'd rather work on a different project. And I think line managers really appreciate when you say that to them, because then you know that you're not wasting your time, kind of thing, and you can work on a project that's more suited for you. So I think, yeah, just communication with managers, people in your team is just so important.
Yeah, really good insight. That, I mean, I guess from outside looking in, it would feel maybe alien to say no to something so early in your career. So it's great that there is that culture where you can do that. So yeah, very good insight. On that, thank you all for your insights. It's been we're over time already, and there's so many good questions that have come in as well. So I guess that's just testament to the amount of detail that you've gone into. So I've certainly found it really interesting. I'm sure that everyone watching on has as well. I would very much encourage the conversation to all three of you to happen in the booths as well, because it sounds like we didn't have an opportunity to ask all the questions.
Ali, sorry, will we be able to see these questions in our booths?
That is a very good question, actually. You won't, unfortunately, but you can have a quick have a quick look now. So they are in the stage, which is on the right-hand side in the Q&A. And then, yeah, I would encourage anyone who hasn't had their question asked to go over to the employer booth as well. We've got half an hour of this event in the employer booths, and then the official close time is at 3 o'clock. And as a reminder to everyone, we're back on tomorrow as well from 10, with the first presentation starting, I believe, at 10:30. This is a good opportunity for me to say thank you to all three of you. Thank you for everyone watching on. Really hope the conversation carries on in the booths. But until tomorrow, thank you very much to everyone, and see you then.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you in the booth.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.